Hey, you guys, we did it. We are officially the most annoying generation to work with. And the top reason that managers find us insufferable are lack of technological skills. I cannot tell you how many times I've had to teach someone to print something to PDF, how many times I've had to teach someone to add two things together in Excel. So I think my proposal is that we stop doing all that and we just let them figure it out themselves.
Wait, so they're saying that Gen Z lacks technical skills? They're growing up with computers in their face more than millennials did, so I'm confused there. But she's saying, all right, just next time they complain, let them figure out how to convert things to a PDF or save things in Excel. I agree.
I am willing to bet that this is because Gen Z says they don't know how to do it, so their managers don't ask to do their work for them again. I mean, I personally don't teach to fish, nor give them the fish. Now they can buy a fish from me if they wish, but I do not do anything for free.
I have two
Well, the problem with that is that if your boss thinks you're incompetent, they're gonna fire you.
Gen Z daughters. Not the most annoying generation at all. They are so smart and independent. Gen Z is going to change the world.
The lack of tech skills has some legs. Younger people don't really use computers as much as phones and tablets. Not their fault so much, but it's true.
Well, actually, I kind of agree with that. Because the kids are growing up not so much in front of computers like millennials did, but with like their phones and tablets. And if they're not on their computers, they're not going to get the necessary skills that most jobs require. Because like most jobs, you're just in front of a computer typing away, right? Understanding software. And that's how I know a lot of my skills. I self-taught it. Makes sense now that if you're growing up with your phone in your face and a tablet, there's not a lot of jobs that will want those skills. They want to know if you have computer skills, not phone or tablet skills for the most part. Very few jobs require phone skills. Like maybe you need to know how to use a phone so you can be someone's social media manager, or a tablet if you want to work at a cash register at McDonald's for a while or something like that. But no, that is a good point. It makes me think. Not their fault so much, but it's true. There has to be things stimulating for the next generation to be on a computer instead of a tablet. But that gave me thought.
Trouble for Gen Z in the workplace. Employers are reporting that this generation is the most difficult to work with.
You want to know what's funny? Come here. It's not that the new generation is more difficult to work with. It's that the older generation is more difficult to work for, right? Because in the article, it further explains that the newer generation is more difficult to work with, right? Because apparently they're easily offended. Get so close right now. I promise you it's the older generation that is more offended than anybody else. If you don't believe me, go to your boss and ask for a raise and watch how offended everybody gets, right? Or put in your 2-week notice and watch how personal your boss takes that, right? Another reason was apparently the new generation is untrustworthy. I promise you, during your job interview, when your boss says, we're like a family, and then you had to take a day off because it's a personal issue, watch them make you feel so guilty for doing so, right? And lastly, they said that the newer generation apparently are lazy. It's not that they're lazy. They're not getting paid enough to do more than what they're already hired to do. That's not called being lazy. That's called taking a stance and having standards.
Difficult to work.
Who was that? That guy was amazing. If someone can leave a comment below of who that was, I'd like to follow that person more. That was really good. That was really good. That the older... I mean, this is a complaint that's common, not through this time of our lives, but like all of history. Older generation complains about the new generation coming in, that they don't like to work, but it's so true. It's not, they're working right now. They're just not getting paid enough. That's why they're frustrated. That's why they're high turnover rates. Like, dude, this job is not going to pay my rent. What am I doing? I'm wasting my time when I should be finding something that is going to pay my rent. But I love that he said, ask for a raise and see how offended they take it, how personal they take it. That is so good. That was really good. Or if you put in your 2 weeks notice, how personal they take that. It's like, hey, why are you leaving us? We put so much effort into you. Look, pay me more, man. I got rent. I can't live like this underwater forever, man. If you can't pay me, I'm going to go to someone else who can. That was a good rant. I really like that one.
Work with equals, I can't control and manipulate them.
I'm a millennial in the workplace. They're right. Gen Z is so fucking entitled. They think everyone needs to cater to their bullshit.
Well, what is their BS though? Because I could kind of think of like, identity politics, like their identity. You have to cater to them. Them, they, he, she, it, unicorn, whatever fairy tale pronouns that they have. So yeah, that's one of them. I see it at work with like everyone has that in their email signature. I'm like, what is this? I don't want to say like Gen Z is like all woke or anything like that or whatever the terminology really means, but I understand. They're just trying to find their place in the world, and the other generations are just trying to make sense of it. That's what it really is.
I mean, they are the people who literally make the business run. So yeah, you kinda have to cater to their bullshit.
What the article means to say is, older generations don't like working with Gen Z because Gen Z doesn't want their labor exploited by the older generations.
Well, they're the young workforce, though. They're the ones coming in learning about the job and everything else. So every time you start your career, the pay is going to be low. The only difference is that the pay right now is so low, you can't even afford rent. So I understand that. Older generations, they could just have a job flipping burgers and they'd be able to afford rent. Today, no, that's impossible today.
Gen Z is better at setting boundaries, but older generations label it as being offended or lazy.
As a millennial, I'm literally taking notes from Gen Z. I work to have a life, not live to work.
But yeah, that's the first thing, right? Everyone, the whole work-life balance, that's only started because there's so much more to life than working for someone else, to pleasing someone else. And we keep getting told, work harder and you'll get what you want, which is most of the time not true. I'm not saying it all the time. Most of the time it's not true. Or work harder for yourself. That's what it really means. Work harder for yourself, but not for others. You will reward yourself. That's why you have to work harder, save that money, invest in a business of your own or something. Don't work hard for someone else, work hard for yourself.
And to demonstrate how out of touch the generations are, most millennials don't watch cable news, even fewer Gen Z. Who was this story for?
Well, who watches mainstream media on cable TV now? It's older generation, right? The most lied to propaganda news channels, right? They all cater to large corporations. So yeah, it makes sense that millennials and Gen Z, they watch YouTube or Rumble or other independent sources for actual real news, not what cable news has, because it's basically just catering to corporations and telling people how they should think and how they should vote for and how we should remain divided.
The older generations, obviously. They like staying in their own egotistical delusions.
Gen Z, my generation, I think is honestly the worst generation. I just got off work, I'm in my car and I'm scrolling and I see yet again another girl in my generation crying about how she doesn't want to work. Now don't get me wrong, I know inflation is crazy and I know that jobs aren't paying you as much as they should to keep up with inflation. However, everyone needs to work an 8-hour day, 5 days a week. That's literally life, okay? I think the problem with my generation stems from everyone started working a lot later than other generations previously. I started working when I was 14, but a lot of people my age didn't start working until they finished college, honestly. And I think that's a big problem. So I think part of it is like they're not used to working, but everyone works 8-hour days, 5 days a week, full time. That's how it is.
Well, I mean, one thing I agree to that is that, and this happened to millennials too, where they had their first job right after college. Like their first actual job where they worked 20 plus hours a week. Not like some random side gig or something, make some side cash while you're in college, but like an actual job with a boss, responsibility, just monitoring you, where you actually need the money, right? You actually need the money. And yeah, it's shocking, right? You're like, okay, wow, like this is all I got after 2 weeks of work. Like, how do I afford things? And I feel like a lot of that happens to be like, hey man, I was hoping to make a lot more money coming out of college. But like, you have to understand, it's a stepping stone of life. Like, you got to get more experience. You have to have more life experience. You'll understand yourself better and what it takes to make more money. And we all saw that one video of that young woman who cried about her first 8-to-5 job. But this is today's society standard, is working 40 hours a week, and each pay period you get this amount of money. That is your paycheck. And if you don't like it, you work harder, you do something else to get more money. Now, if you don't like the current system of the 40-hour work week, figure out a way how to change it instead of complaining about it and crying about it on social media. Figure out a way where it makes more sense how you can still work less hours and have a greater output and have more money to afford things. But right now, we're not there. Nor do I have an answer for it. If that is the problem for Gen Z, up to you to figure it out. Again, crying and complaining on social media does not work. Because for whatever reason, Gen Z uses social media as like the therapy, right? I don't even see, I think I see some millennials, my generation, use social media as a form of therapy, which isn't good overall.
And life isn't fair. So if you're my generation watching this, just get a job.
I'm in your generation. Started working at 13 and now I work 50 plus hours a week at 22. Has nothing to do with generation.
I work because I have to, not because I want to. If I could support myself without working, I would do it. Don't care if people think I'm lazy.
I started working third shift at Amazon, worked overtime, worked on off days, and didn't come close to affording my own rent, groceries. Some nights I walked 17 miles in 10 hours, but that's my fault?
Working overtime, worked on off days, and didn't come close to affording my own rent. I understand that this is harder than it was for previous generations. I understand this is harder than what millennials had. And we had the 2008 financial crisis, and we had things just really hard for us to get a job, and now we're finally moving. But in comparison, I say right now is way harder than that 2008 financial crisis, because even if you have a job, most of those jobs are just not going to pay your rent. And if you want to get a good paying job, you have to compete against so much more people to have a decent, good job, because there's so few of them. And it's weird how we have this huge labor market, so many jobs are available, blah, blah, but they all don't pay well. They don't pay the bills. And that's the biggest problem. And it does bother me when the older generations just say, work hard or do this or that. It's like they cannot do what Gen Z is doing right now. If they were able to start over at Gen Z's level, they would not accomplish anything. I guarantee you that. Some will, but most of them would be stuck and do the exact same thing as Gen Z is doing, is complaining.
Miles in 10 hours, but that's my fault?
No, that is not life. That is slavery.
Is Gen Z really difficult to work with?
So, a new resume builder survey of 1,300 plus managers and business leaders revealed 74% found that those people who are 26 and younger tend to be the most challenging to work with. What are some of the top reasons? A lack of technological skills. That one surprised me. Lack of motivation. They're easily distracted, easily offended, and dishonest.
What a bullshit survey. Like, I can't even believe this was a news story. Breaking news. Old people think young people are lazy. Story at 11. Might as well be breaking news. Old man yells at clouds. And I especially like that it said that they're easily offended.
They're easily distracted, easily offended.
Oh boy, you can't even slap a coworker on the ass these days. You can't even honk a woman's boob without the woke Gen Z getting offended. Okay, but here's the truth of the whole thing. Most of these companies would lay you off in a heartbeat if it affected their bottom line. And Gen Z knows that. They might even be the first generation to enter the workforce knowing that. I'm not telling you to be lazy on someone else's dime, but a lot of these companies don't give a damn about you, and it's perfectly acceptable to not give a damn back.
Gen Z is toxic. That's what a crazy amount of employers believe.
If anyone can tell me who that guy is with the red hat in the comment section, I greatly appreciate it. Let me start back a little bit.
Gen Z is toxic. That's what a crazy amount of employers believe, and it could affect your money and your entire financial future. Look at the crazy statistics behind this. 68% of small business owners say Gen Z were the least reliable of their employees. One of the baby boomer bosses said absolute delusion, complete lack of common sense, and zero critical reasoning or basic analytical skills. And this could explain a lot, like one of the reasons this Gen Z man went viral after applying to 200 jobs. And of the bosses, 62% said Gen Z was the most likely to create division and toxicity in the workplace. But it gets a whole lot worse. Worse to the point that they might not even hire them anymore, because they fear the toxicity could lead to company lawsuits, as 57% says Gen Z run the most risk of creating a workplace lawsuit. But Gen Z does have some defenders. Dan Space, an HR consultant, said this. He says you can't intimidate Gen Z the way that you could with millennials, nor do they have the Gen X apathy. He says the portrayal of Gen Z as toxic for the workplace is not only unjust, but also overlooks the broader context of the evolving workplace. They want transparency, inclusivity, and purpose for their work. The bosses don't believe they'll stick around, and they're kind of right. 71% of Gen Zers would quit their jobs tomorrow for one who better supported their well-being, and 31% would consider a pay cut for exchange of a happier, healthier environment.
As owner of a small...
One thought that comes to mind is who raised Gen Z?
company, I'll take my chances without them.
I am customer service trainer and it's 50-50. They are either super smart or lack common sense, lol.
Honestly, I've worked at like crappy jobs growing up, like call centers and customer service as well. And I train people. And even in my generation as a millennial, when new people come in, I felt like it was 50-50. Some got it, some did not. You can tell who's going to quit the next day or who has it. I mean, that's just like anything else in life and any generation, honestly, if you think about it.
Oh.
I don't know what to tell you because I don't know anyone that complains more than my boomer coworkers.
That's funny. But you see, this can go the other way around.
My entire department that constantly breaks records is almost completely made up of Gen Z and is doing just fine. We do worse when older people come in and try to tell us what to do.
Employers are toxic. Guess it takes one to know one.
It's come out recently that the Gen Z generation is the saddest generation ever, more susceptible to depression and just in general feel like they have no sort of motivation to kind of succeed in life. And if you hear anyone saying this is because they don't want to work hard or they aren't made like they're used to it or any sort of shit like that, tell that person to go fuck themselves. Because look at this logically, right? Either in one generation humans have evolved to become more susceptible to depression and feel less motivated, which feels unlikely, or we've fundamentally let them down and given them absolutely zero chance of sort of achieving success because they're just so crushed by everything that's going on. So it's absolutely just not true and not fair to blame Gen Z for the situation because they are being given a rough entry level to adulthood. So please, it's not Gen Z's problem. It's absolutely our problem to fix and we've got to do better.
I believe that to an extent. I do believe that Gen Z is set up for failure. Like, things are really hard, good luck, and it's just natural to complain, right? That's what everyone does to blow off steam, is complain. Life is rough. Boomers did that too with their jobs, their boss sucks, this and that. Every generation does this. But I really think Gen Z has it way harder than millennials did. And, of course, Gen X, and then boomers.
On paper, I earned twice what my father did at the same age. But by now he was on his third house, 2 cars, 3 holidays a year, lots in savings.
My parents were immigrants from Mexico, worked hard in blue-collar jobs, and were able to afford a house. Now, they did have their struggles, don't get me wrong. But me, with 2 master's degrees, I was barely able to afford a house. I can't today. But you know, I got my house just over a year ago now. I could barely afford it because that 1 year difference of house prices going up and interest rates going up, there's just no way I could afford my house today.
Not sure. Currently it's the easiest time in history ever to become self-made. So many opportunities. I think other things are at play.
I like this a lot. There's a lot of ways to be self-made, and I hope Gen Z can realize this, that you can probably make a lot more on your own versus working for someone. I think that we're going to get to that point where it's like, why am I working for someone for freaking peanuts? I know these skills. I could just do it for myself and just work on my own and do my own hours and be like in consulting or just provide the service for like 5 different companies or just make way more than just one person with a boss who's a jerk.
Opportunities. I think other things are at play.
Guys, wait till Gen Alpha come. Basically wait 3 years, then you will see people are getting depression at like 9 because of how much pressure we have to deal with.
We still have people born in the 1940s in high-ranking government positions. Ergo, the positions lower than that are held on and not passed on. Opportunity is not being passed on.
Let's talk about how entitled Gen Z really is. And it starts with this graph. Right here, 1980-1990. This is where a lot of the Boomer and Gen X consultants that you see on that article came from, where if you worked really hard, you would get rewarded with higher pay, promotion. But look what's been happening right around the time Gen Z was born over here. Their pay is this tiny little sliver that's barely inching up. Meanwhile, the S&P 500 and CEO pay is exploding. So, who's entitled? The working person who just wants to meet their bare standard of living for an honest day's work, or CEOs whose pay has gone almost 1,000% upward without sharing any of that with the people whose labor made them rich.
I think one thing that was not really taught in schools is, about in the 80s up to the 90s, when you see things shoot up, that the boomers did, or many smart boomers, was invested their money. They invested their money, right? And that wasn't really taught until, honestly, I'm thinking like recent, like only a few years, until with the YouTube, people were saying the importance of investing and saving your money. It wasn't just enough to save your money in your savings account, but what I'm saying is like you save your money to invest it into something.
Who's really entitled here?
My adult children will probably be living with me for another decade, or forever. There's no exit on the horizon.
I do the minimum requirements at work. My coworkers like to beat each other in stats. I like to beat that level in Candy Crush I was stuck on for 5 days and refuse to pay to play.
We need to instate a maximum wage in America.
No, we don't. No, we don't. I mean, if you don't like that certain CEOs have this crazy amount of money, like look at Elon Musk, right? Crazy multi-billionaire. Don't buy his products then if you don't like it. Or Amazon, Jeff Bezos. If you don't like how rich Jeff Bezos is, of course he's not in Amazon anymore, but I forget who the other CEO is. But if you don't like how rich they are, stop using Amazon. Go with another product, like support local businesses or something. Just don't get involved.
We are the most productive workers in the history of humanity and do not get compensated as such.
I'm Gen Z. I literally do almost 2 times the work of my 40 and 50 plus coworkers, and I probably only actually work 3 hours a day.
I think a CEO's pay should only 10 times the minimum full-time salary. That way the CEO is motivated to pay more to the bottom end in order to pay themselves more.
You know what? I say you become a CEO and you make that a standard and have people want to work for you. That's how it happens. But right now, like CEOs, they make a lot of money because they have a product that people want. They have a service that people want. And you are part of the problem if you continue to purchase their services. Now, I understand there's some monopolies that you just can't get around, but hey, if that Apple device you have, the Apple phone, you don't like how the CEO makes so much money and while the other workers at the stores make so little, stop buying their products. They'll probably maybe have to make an adjustment or find a cell phone company that treats their employees better, because iPhone's not the only smartphone out there. There's Samsung, there is Google, there's all these other phones. So you have the ability with your money to change things and how companies can change their ways, because they want your money. But if you make it too easy for them and then you complain, that's not how things work. I think that's all for right now. So I just screwed up my hair. If you like my video, please leave a like. If you made it this far, I think I deserve a sub. And be sure to comment below. I do read them. Until next time. Bye.